Hey everyone, and welcome to the midweek review. Today was kind of a bloodbath across the markets. The FOMC minutes did come out, and that led to some volatility across the board of all the indices, and it did end up a very red, strong candle on the day between all the indices here. So starting off with these, we can see that the ES futures have now closed one time below the 21 EMA. That doesn't mean that it can't bounce back up above it. If you look at these previous closes below it, it usually reverts pretty fast back up to that 21 EMA with strong buying power. As you can see here, we had it here too, right here, and right here. So tomorrow will be very telling if this market can regain its bullish momentum, or if we actually finally do get to see a correction start to happen in the market. Tomorrow will be a very, very telling day with that. So looking down the list here at the other futures, if we look at the Qs, um, just like the ESs, they do finally have their first close below that 21. Did reject that -1 ATR range. We do have this daily squeeze setting up that's gaining some bearish momentum, but as I said before, we will see if it can easily regain this level or not tomorrow. Going over to the Dow, same thing as the other ones. Our first close below that 21 after a long time of not closing below that. So um, tomorrow will be very telling between all of the top indices. But the one that I actually am very bearish on now are the small caps. We have had a few days now. So what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4 days closing below that. We are getting our first red bar on the histogram in the squeeze, which is bearish momentum. And then also, if we look at the weekly time frame here, we can see that we do have a weekly squeeze setting up as well that is looking to fire to the downside. And we had this push off of that -1 ATR region, got denied by that 8 EMA, and now we are starting to roll over once again. I think this squeeze could definitely fire to the downside, and we could see a lot more selling pressure come within the next few weeks or months with small caps. Now, this is the only weekly chart that actually does look bearish. The other ones are still holding up very solidly, so there's really no reason to be too bearish on the other indices as a whole. ES is just reverting back to that 8 EMA as of now. The Qs are also just reverting back to that 8 EMA in the weekly time frame. And then the Dow is doing the exact same thing. So from here, what we need to watch is if these indices on the weekly time frame are just reverting back down to this 21 EMA, or if they actually start to bounce off of that 8 EMA. I think this week will be very telling. If by the end of it we do get that close below the 8 EMA, I assume that we are going to flush down to that 21 EMA on all indices. But if we do bounce off that 8 EMA, I am still very bullish in the market and think we can see more potential upside. So that being said, I do have a few plays that I'm watching to the long side and the short side, depending on how the market reacts these next few days. So starting off with to the long side is what we'll focus on. Looking at Comcast here. Been holding this 21 EMA very nicely. We have our stacked DMAs. We're in an acceleration mode as well. We have a daily squeeze here. That's histogram is above 0. We are getting some darker blue bars intermittently with the lighter blue bars, but I still like the structure of this one to the long side as long as the market does not roll over. So as I said on Sunday, I did like the real estate sector, and it still is solid. It's holding that 21 EMA, and that's why I still like AMT. We're getting some yellow bars here, which is gaining bullish momentum. We're still holding above that 21 EMA, so everything about this structure is still leading me to believe that it is bullish, so we'll be looking at this one as well to the long side. A new one that I am now looking at is Now. these last 4 days, it held that 21 EMA very nicely. We have stacked EMAs. The only thing I don't like about it is this red bar on the histogram, so we are below that 0 now. Ideally want to see this turn yellow or light blue again before getting along in this one, because it may roll over if the rest of the market does as well. Now looking at a few stocks that I am liking to short. The first one obviously being these small caps here. As I said, with the futures, they are looking very bearish to me. I would ideally just want a reversion to this 8 EMA before entering a trade to the downside, but this daily squeeze does look very nice as it is gaining that bearish momentum and hopefully can keep seeing some selling pressure come into it. The next one I'm looking at is Disney. Earnings made it pop. It filled that gap very quickly the next day. And now it's continuing to see this selling pressure with 4 very, very strong days of selling. We have no stacked DMAs. We're trading below the 21, and we have bearish momentum on the squeeze histogram. All I'm looking for is a reversion to that 21 EMA before looking short on this one. The next one is Nvidia. So this one has had 2 closes now below that 21 EMA, which is telling me that it is now kind of fitting that bearish structure that I look for in a stock. We have no more stacked EMAs. We do have this daily squeeze gaining that bearish momentum. Just like Disney though, I want to see this one revert back up to that 21 EMA before looking short on it. The last one I'm looking at is the Qs. Technology has been absolutely booming since COVID, basically, and I do think that they are due for a strong correction within the market. We have our first close here below that 21. I mean, we do still have stacked DMAs, so you never want to go against that, so I will wait until there are no longer stacked DMAs, but we do have a nice daily squeeze setting up with bearish momentum, and I do believe we could see some further selling pressure within the tech sector itself. So this is the midweek review. Hopefully it helps you all understand a little bit more of the market structure and where it could potentially go the rest of the week. Have a good one, everyone.